Fernando Alonso's return to F1 with Renault next year has been one of the biggest developments that has been confirmed in recent weeks. With the big change in regulations in 2022, the decision to return could pay off for Alonso if Renault were hit the jackpot just as Mercedes did with the hybrid era or Red Bull did with the V8 era prior to that. Apparently, Alonso is already taking steps to ensure that Renault's focus is completely on 2022. I'm your host Dylan Shelley, and first up on Formula World, Alonso is already taking charge at Renault. Pat Symonds, the Chief Technical Officer at Formula One, began by highlighting Alonso's ability to adapt really quickly. One of the great things about Fernando is that he was very quick and very able to adapt to whatever the situation was. He further elaborated on this with respect to the changing landscape in F1. Will the wily old Fernando Alonso be the first to suss out how best to get the performance from that 2022 car? I think the answer will be yes. I think he'll be very quick to figure out what matters and what doesn't matter, how to work with the engineers to get the best setup from the car, how the 18-inch tyres behave differently from the 13-inch, all of these kinds of things. He concluded by revealing that Alonso has already taken charge at Renault. I was amused to see that he's already starting to direct the team and tell them to forget about 2021 and get on with 2022. I think he's pretty adaptable and he'll get the best from the 2022 car. Fast feed! Former F1 driver turned commentator Martin Brundle has suggested that Renault's Esteban Ocon is an impressive fighter, but as with his days at Force India, he must realise that working as a team is not a weakness, and certainly a maturity the big teams look for. He also thinks that despite his excellent performance for Max Verstappen, it's another season in which he plays the supporting role. Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko thinks that if Racing Point and Mercedes get away with their little game, we could see up to 8 Mercedes, 6 Ferrari, 4 Red Bull and 2 Renault on the starting grid next year. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff is 100% convinced that Red Bull will come very strong in Hungary. Former F1 driver Eddie Irvine would have gotten rid of Vettel this year if he was in charge at Ferrari, as he thinks it's destructive having Vettel there. Former F1 driver Gerhard Berger thinks that there is still a distance of 3/10 between Mercedes and Red Bull. Ferrari team boss Mattia Binotto has revealed that it wasn't easy for them to accept the budget cap, but they acted very responsibly because it's important for the sport and the smaller teams. He also hopes that it isn't just Ferrari that will accept compromises, and was disappointed that the idea of a reversed grid was rejected by Mercedes. He further thinks that if everyone looked only at their advantage, many of the decisions that were made during the lockdown would not have been possible. Haas driver Kevin Magnussen doesn't think that anything the team has done has made the car worse at all. Instead, he feels that if you look at all the Ferrari-powered cars, there's some similarities, and thinks that there's probably something that is holding them back a little bit. Alex Albon received some criticism for not being able to match Max Verstappen during the Styrian Grand Prix, and his team principal Christian Horner defended him by saying that let's not forget that he drove a strong weekend a week earlier. He further added that it just shows how short the memory of some people is in F1, who quickly forget things. He, however, accepts that the drop in performance is a little bigger for Alex than for Max by the looks of it. And Haas team principal Gunther Steiner quips that sometimes 3 or 4 teams fight over the same driver while great drivers are available, like Nico Hülkenberg a year ago. If you were Ferrari, would you get rid of Vettel this year? Head over to my community page to vote in the poll and let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like this video, feel free to subscribe and check out my others for all the latest in the world of Formula One.